Okay, so a few weeks ago, we talked about some wide receivers you could be trading for 2023. So these are going to be some rebuilding teams. I will say there are 1 to 2 names on this list that if you're a contender, hell sure, go out there and grab them. But mainly this is going to be for those teams that are playing for 2023. And I want to reiterate myself. We have said this God knows how many times before. The best thing you can be doing right now is trading for 2023 picks at a discount. Now, of course, I prefer doing that with rebuilding rosters. I'm fine doing it with contending teams as well. So that's your plan A. Your plan A is not to go out there and decide, you know what? Yeah, probably a pretty good idea to trade for Kenneth Walker. No, plan A, probably a pretty good idea to go trade for some 2023 picks. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to collect every single pick, but once you go knocking door to door and figure out the price point, then we can figure out our options with these running backs. And before we get into it, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, even though I know everybody subscribes, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's just dive right into it, and let's start off with an expensive running back. Okay, let's go. I don't want to say the cream of the crop, but we are going to go with someone that you're not getting for a second round pick this year. You are going to have to pay up for him. This will be A.J. Dillon. So with A.J. Dillon, I want to talk positively on the player, but without bearing Aaron Jones. We've already discussed Aaron Jones for contending teams. I mean, we've seen his price actually come up on Keep Trade Cut and on Underdog Fantasy over the past few weeks. But at the time, Aaron Jones was a great trade candidate for a contending roster. Instead of paying for Derrick Henry, instead of paying for Dalvin Cook, you could have traded for Aaron Jones at a massive discount for this upcoming season's production and possibly 2023. But 2023 is not a guarantee with Aaron Jones because the Green Bay Packers, they went out there, they drove to the bank, they got about the largest withdrawal they could possibly find, and they paid that money to Aaron Rodgers. So from here on out, this is a team that's not going to be willing to just go through and hand a bag to running back X. I mean, this is why we saw them trade away Davante Adams for a first-round pick. You think that they thought they were getting a better player than Davante Adams in the first? No, of course not. They thought they were saving money, which they need to by signing Aaron Rodgers. Now here, they could save $11 million if they decide to move on from Aaron Jones before that 2023 season. So A.J. Dillon is someone that all of a sudden we need to be looking at. This was a running back that was drafted in the second round in 2020, so he'll be closing in on the end of his rookie contract by then. But without Aaron Jones, we know that A.J. Dillon is probably one of the highest upside running backs that you're going to be able to find. Now, we don't have too many data points to look at with A.J. Dillon saying, okay, we know he's a 3-down bell cow, 100% fact. No, sadly, we have not seen him have that starting job over a long duration, but we can see that he's a special player. Now, we said this at the time he was drafted, and I know everybody always gets mad when I bring him up in the same sentence as Derrick Henry, but if we go through and look at players that weighed 247 pounds and ran a 4.53 40-yard dash and were selected inside the top 64 draft picks, you know how many guys you have? A.J. Dillon and Derrick Henry. Dillon has glimpses of that. If we're just talking size-adjusted athleticism, which we know translates to fantasy success at the running back position. No, it doesn't necessarily do so at wide receiver. No, you shouldn't be going out of your way and chasing Brashad Perriman, chasing Kevin White. No, we shouldn't be chasing size-adjusted athleticism at wide receiver, but we can at running back. And the one issue that you had with A.J. Dillon was, can he catch the ball out of the backfield? He didn't at Boston College. If you look at our running back prospect grade of A.J. Dillon, you're going to say, okay, well, yeah, there's a reason that he's a little bit further down than other running backs that go in round 2 that have the elite athleticism. It's because he was not a college pass catcher. But the one game that we had no Aaron Jones with, you had A.J. Dillon actually going out and having 6 targets. Derrick Henry's never done that. Maybe he's done that, 4 or 5 games throughout his entire career. No, you actually have some receiving upside with A.J. Dillon if Aaron Jones were not in the picture. And A.J. Dillon is going to continue to expand his role. I mean, we saw this his rookie season. He actually averaged 4.2 carries per game. If we compare this to his second year, he averaged 11 carries per game, and we have seen Aaron Jones and his usage in this offense be on a steady decline since 2019. Now, like I said, I've made a video on Aaron Jones. I think both running backs can be successful. With Aaron Jones, he will get every valuable touch in this backfield. For this year, you still prefer Aaron Jones, and I still think Aaron Jones is a fine trade candidate. You're getting him at a discount for this reason on a contending team. But if you're looking at Aaron Jones, 57% of his backfield carries in 2019. In 2020, that came down to 52%. In 2021, that continued to go down to about 43.5%. So you're seeing that role kind of diminish from Aaron Jones as a between the tackles grinder. Now, he's still going to be great receiving the ball. He will have an increased role in the passing game because of the departure of Davante Adams, specifically in the red zone. So still love Aaron Jones. I don't want this to be, oh, boo-boo, we don't want Jones. No. But if he were to leave Green Bay, you were looking at A.J. Dillon running behind an elite offensive line in an offense that historically is more likely than not to be top 10 in overall points scored based on the efficiency that Aaron Rodgers brings. And A.J. Dillon has the size to handle 20 plus touches a game. I mean, right now you're seeing on Underdog Fantasy, so I like looking at this because it gives us an idea what the redraft community is thinking versus the Dynasty community. You have A.J. Dillon as the running back 25 on Underdog, and if we compare this to Dynasty, A.J. Dillon's going as the running back 20, so people are taking into account that the long term is a little bit more exciting with A.J. Dillon than this upcoming current season. I think if we were trying to trade for Dillon and we're a rebuilding roster, what I'd be looking to do is I'd be looking to take one of our veteran wide receivers. Like if we could try to move on from an Allen Robinson and get A.J. Dillon in return. If you're playing in a league where you can only start up to 4 wide receivers weekly, that's going to be the perfect move. And real quick, as we bring up Underdog ADP, let me give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy. If you want to get into real money fantasy football drafts today, right now, if you want to do that with us on the live stream, which we do every single day, I'm sure y'all have seen us drafting on Underdog on the live stream. Make sure you go sign up with the link in the description. You can use promo code FLOCK. You'll have a ton of fun in these drafts. And when you use promo code FLOCK, they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You'll get our Dynasty rankings. You'll get our Dynasty rookie rankings. You'll get our Dynasty rookie draft guide that has over 130 pages of content in it. So yeah, we will have A.J. Dillon as our first guy on this list because there's an outside chance you have no Aaron Jones on this roster next year. Now let's go over to a cheap option. Let's go to someone that you're just going to be treating as a throw-in. I'll talk about our trade strategies for him at the end of this, but Kenneth Gainwell. Now with Kenneth Gainwell, if you look around in Philadelphia right now, I mean, you have Jordan Howard out of the picture. With no Jordan Howard, immediately this upcoming season, Kenneth Gainwell becomes more appealing because we saw Jordan Howard this past year only have a 7-game stretch of playing, but in those 7 games, he actually averaged more rushing attempts than anybody else in this Philadelphia Eagles backfield. So it's a great sign to have Jordan Howard gone. But if we're talking about a rebuilding roster, if we're talking 2023, why we are bringing up Kenneth Gainwell is another running back in this backfield, a Boston Scott, who had 7 rushing touchdowns last year, who had 87 carries. Boston Scott is only signed for this upcoming season. He is on a 1-year deal himself. So we could see Boston Scott out of Philadelphia in 2023. Now, of course, you still have Miles Sanders, but Miles Sanders drafted in 2019. Not Josh Jacobs, doesn't have the 5th-year option. So if we can do some quick math, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Oh, crap. Miles Sanders is under his last year of contract in Philadelphia as well. So if we look at the entire Philadelphia Eagles roster right now, the only running back under contract in 2023 is going to be Kenneth Gainwell. Now, I will be the first person to admit, no, it is not likely that Kenneth Gainwell is the starter there. It is not likely at all. Remember, when we were saying to pick up, we were not ever high on this player. I was calling him a bust. So if you're just watching the channel, don't think I was saying that this is some great option. We were saying to pick him up off the waiver wire, Keyshawn Vaughn, because you had no Ronald Jones, you had no Leonard Fournette signed in 2022. And what happened? They let Ronald Jones walk. They re-signed Leonard Fournette, and then they drafted Rachaad White inside the top 100 NFL draft picks. So it's not like a guarantee all of a sudden that these running backs are going to leave and then Kenneth Gainwell is going to be the running back 1 of the roster. But what it does show is an easy path to have a committee role next year, almost regardless. Because if they decide to bring Miles Sanders back, we already saw that role from Kenneth Gainwell this past year, and this role isn't necessarily going to lead Kenneth Gainwell to ever getting 15 touches a game. No, of course you're not expecting that with Kenneth Gainwell. All we are asking for is usage in the red zone as well as usage in the receiving game, which Kenneth Gainwell actually had his rookie season. If you're looking at Gainwell, this is a running back that only averaged 4.3 carries a game. I mean, horrible. You're never starting a running back with 4.3 carries per game, but keep in mind, you had Boston Scott, you had Jordan Howard, both of whom are probably off this team in 2023. And despite not having a role as a rusher, the man went out there and he averaged over 3 targets a game. He had a decent role as a receiving running back. I mean, he averaged almost more targets per game than carries per game this past season. And to go along with all of this, he had 6 touchdowns. 6 touchdowns off of 4 carries a game. So this tells us, okay, Kenneth Gainwell has a role as a receiving running back. He has a role in the red zone, and that role can potentially expand if you have the departure of Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard's already gone. Boston Scott, 1 year left. Now, if we're looking at where he is going, I mean, in 2021 real money fantasy football drafts on Underdog Fantasy, link in the description, you have Kenneth Gainwell as the running back 48. He's going directly behind Tyler Algier, Darrell Henderson, Naheem Hines. And if we're looking at keep, trade, cut, you actually have Kenneth Gainwell as the running back 49. So like, this is what we are looking for. We are looking for a running back that his redraft expectations and his dynasty expectations are relatively the same. I mean, he's ranked lower in dynasty than he is in redraft. And you're going to be able to see that role expand next year. You're going to be able to see that he probably is in a better situation in 2023 than he is in 2022. So Kenneth Gainwell is the perfect guy. You're not ever going to take your 2023 third and trade it for Kenneth Gainwell. There's no reason for you to do that because go try offering your 2023 third for Kenneth Gainwell. 9 times out of 10 is what's going to happen. They're going to pick up their sleeper phone. They're going to go, okay, well, why is this guy sending me an offer for Kenneth Gainwell? I'm not trading Gainwell. Give me a second. Like, it never works. It never works out trying to trade a 4th or a 3rd for a player in the offseason because all of a sudden that owner of said player is thinking of all the reasons why he's exciting. So we bring this up all the time. I mean, our example of this earlier this offseason was pivoting off of Chase Claypool, going to Rashad Bateman, and then picking up your additional player because they were 2 wide receivers ranked in the same tier, and you can just insert any name. Obviously, they're ranked differently now, but just go and insert any wide receiver like Rashad Bateman and Elijah Moore. Another great example. These are 2 wide receivers that are ranked back-to-back in keep, trade, cut. If you have one and then the owner of Kenneth Gainwell has the other and you're like, okay, there's no difference for me whatsoever. Let's send them a trade and ask if they want to swap that way and we can pick up Kenneth Gainwell for free. And even if they don't go for that, then you could say, hey, what if I throw in my 4th round pick? Then if that deal gets pulled off, you just traded your 4th round pick for Kenneth Gainwell, and that would have never happened straight up. So I always think that with these throw-in type players, it's almost impossible to just go ahead and offer a pick for them straight up because the other owner never takes. I don't know why. I'm not a psychologist. I would love to know your opinion on why you think that's the case. I definitely know it's a trend, and I definitely think we have to get around it, but it is what it is. Now, let's go over to our next running back. This is going to be someone that's also cheap. This is going to be Ramondre Stevenson. Now, if we're looking at Ramondre Stevenson, Damien Harris only has 1 year left in his deal. And I'm assuming that the New England Patriots are not planning on bringing Damien Harris back. Now, they go out there and they draft Pierre Strong, pick 127, and Kevin Harris this season. This kind of tells us, okay, well, we know they're not going to have James White next year. At least we can assume they're not going to have James White next season. And they need to be ready to let Damien Harris walk, which is something that the New England Patriots have shown the ability to do before. They've shown the ability to let that player walk. They're fine getting a comp pick and just resetting the clock with a rookie contract. And that were to be the case, Ramondre Stevenson all of a sudden is the starting running back in New England. Now, I will say it's always so hard to predict this offense that you could be trading for Ramondre Stevenson today and you could go, okay, I just added Stevenson. We don't even know if Damien Harris is going to be the starter. Who knows what Bill Belichick is going to do? And I agree with you. Who knows what Bill Belichick is going to do? So you shouldn't be that surprised if Pierre Strong has a role, if Kevin Harris somehow has a role in this offense. Now, of course, if we had to project this, I would say Ramondre Stevenson is that guy to take over for Harris. If we're talking about his actual dynasty value, right now he is being drafted as the running back 40 in Dynasty. If we cross-reference this with where he's going in redraft, you have Ramondre Stevenson going as the running back 38 in redraft. So this is what we're saying. You see him going as running back 38 on Underdog, and we go, okay, he's a second-year player, probably going to be in a better situation next season. Should his dynasty price be the same or lower? No, it shouldn't. So I think that is just a massive alarm going, okay, yeah, things are checking out here. Let's go ahead. Let's trade for him. Especially, let me know in the comment section. Do you think Bill Belichick's bringing back Damien Harris? I think the actions he took this offseason by drafting both Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris shows that he's probably not. Okay, so now let's move over to our next running back, someone that I do not think is a very talented player. I will be the first person to admit this. He is not an exciting talent. He was overdrafted in the NFL draft. We were avoiding him in Dynasty rookie drafts. I still think you need to prefer someone like Jahan Dotson over James Cook. Like Jahan Dotson, round 1 NFL wide receiver, checks a lot of boxes we're looking for. I think he does have the talent. We're going to bet on the talent and hope that the situation fixes itself in the coming seasons. But James Cook right now, dear God, if you go over to Buffalo, he does look like he's going to split this backfield 50-50 with Devin Singletary for the time being. You can kind of see this on Underdog Fantasy. Devin Singletary being drafted as running back 33, James Cook being drafted as running back 34. But very similar to what we have previously discussed with those 2019 running backs that were not drafted in the first round. Who did you have? Miles Sanders, last year in Philadelphia. Damien Harris, potentially his last year in New England. Devin Singletary, drafted in 2019, potentially his last season in Buffalo. And if Devin Singletary were to leave, and all of a sudden James Cook is, while still in a committee, you're never projecting James Cook to go out there and see 20 plus touches a game. No. He weighs under 100. He weighs under 200 pounds. If he weighed under 100 pounds, we'd have a real problem. But he has a BMI of 27.8. Unless he's Austin Eckler, unless he is Kenyon Drake, he's probably not going to work out to be a 3-down player. But does it matter too much if Devin Singletary leaves and then all of a sudden you are getting James Cook with pretty much every single target out of the backfield? Not only every single target out of the backfield, but he will also be getting some touches in the red zone. Technically, you'll still have Zach Moss on the roster, but what did we see with Zach Moss last year? They had the man as a healthy scratch during times. I think that you're seeing James Cook as the clear replacement for Devin Singletary going forward. And if you're a 2023 team and you can say, okay, well, yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot to look forward to. Let's go ahead and let's try to move one of our veteran, maybe you can say one of our veteran running backs. We can try to go through and trade maybe Ezekiel Elliott and get back James Cook. You're not going to get back a 2023 first on top of it, but say you're a rebuilding team and you go, okay, I have this extra second round pick. Let me package that second with Ezekiel Elliott and see if we can get back James Cook in a 2023 first. That's the type of deal that I'd be looking to make. And then potentially, just potentially, whenever Devin Singletary is gone next year, we can then try to flip James Cook for a little bit more. Now, there are two more guys we need to talk about. The first one, I'm going to keep it very brief because we just talked about him on our redraft channel. Kenneth Walker. With Kenneth Walker, yeah, you're paying a very high price tag in Dynasty. I mean, I was surprised to see his ranking. Like, I have Kenneth Walker ranked lower than this. Kenneth Walker currently is going as the running back 12 in Dynasty. Probably a little too rich for me, even if you're a rebuilding team. I do need to bring up his name because this is a player that the expectation should be a lot higher in 2023 compared to 2022 because he won't have Rashad Penny on that one-year deal any longer. But still, I mean, it's a very high price point to pay in Dynasty in particular. I mean, in redraft right now on Underdog Fantasy, he's going as a running back 28. We're drafting him all the time as a mid running back 3, but tough to trade for him, even on a contending roster in Dynasty. But the player, I have no idea what, I don't know if he's a good buy. I don't know if he is a crappy guy to go after. Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, back in that 2019 draft class, has 1 year left with this Dallas Cowboys contract. Yes, there's always the chance that he resigns. But if we just go through, let me pull up this NFL teams list now, I will admit a lot is going to change. Like how we are projecting the 2023 offseason right now, it's probably not even too useful for us to do it because we already said maybe Damian Harris is out of New England. Then Damian Harris is also a free agent. Maybe Miles Sanders is out of Philadelphia. He's also a free agent. And then we can look at all those top level running backs next year and we can say, okay, yeah, there's going to be a large increase in available RBs to go to RB needy teams next offseason. But hell, what happens if Tony Pollard goes and signs with the Houston Texans? What happens if Tony Pollard goes and signs with the Miami Dolphins? What happens if he goes and signs with the Philadelphia Eagles to take over for Miles Sanders? I think if we look at Pollard, the player, he has proven to be an elite level talent now. I am not trying to say that he is better than Ezekiel Elliott. I know a lot of people try to make that point. I do not agree with it. I don't agree with it at all. But if you're looking at yards per carry in 2021, 2020, and 2019, so since Tony Pollard has entered in the NFL, Tony Pollard has had a higher yards per carry every single season than Ezekiel Elliott. Now, that doesn't mean Pollard's better. Please don't think that means Pollard's better because Tony Pollard also going up against boxes that don't have as many players inside them. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott playing more so first and second down, Tony Pollard getting in there on the majority of third downs, which inherently is going to allow Tony Pollard to be the more efficient player in the more efficient situation. I think if you had Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott switch roles in this offense, instead of Tony Pollard being the guy averaging 5.5 yards per carry and Ezekiel Elliott averaging 4.2 yards per carry, it would be flipped. Zeke would probably be averaging about 5.5. Tony Pollard would probably be about 4.2. But think about what we just said. Are we putting Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott in a similar bucket in terms of their raw talent? If that's the case, Tony Pollard stepping into the prime of... I think Pollard would be exciting just with the off chance that he does land somewhere. Now, it's going to depend on the price, of course. You're never paying a 2023 first. But if we could go through and say, move a veteran wide receiver that's kind of in the middle of the road, like if you can go and trade Brandon Cooks and pick up like Tony Pollard in a second or Tony Pollard in a third, maybe that's something you could do on a rebuilding team. Now, of course, thank you so much for being a part of the Flock supporting the channel. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you want to get into real money fantasy football drafts with me, make sure you go to the link in the description and you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK. That's all I got for you. Hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.